Hello. Welcome everyone to our first Sora Talks of the school year. As you're coming through Zoom room doors, it's good to see your faces. Hello to returning families that know what Sora Talks is. For those of you that it's your first time, I will explain a little bit about Sora Talks in just a moment. I'll let people come on through. Can you pop one word in the chat that you're feeling today? I'm going to put one in too. That song is amazing. Oh, fantastic. Oh, yeah, I like that. Adventurous. I love that. Gratitude. Thank you. Amanda, you make me laugh. I didn't note the spelling, don't worry. We're all tired parents here. That's why we have Sora Talks, right? Okay. Well, I think because this is recorded, we can get going. We're so excited that you've joined us for our first Sora Talks of the series. And just want to know what you're most interested in learning about today's topic. So while I'm sharing who I am and who our speaker for the night is, why don't you pop into the channel something that you're most interested in learning about today? For those of you who don't know me, I'm Rachel Reed. I'm the Family Relationships Manager here at Sora. And for those who are not current Sora parents, Sora Schools is an online middle and high school working to equip students with essential skills for the future. And at Sora, we recognize the profound impact of parenting on children's development. And as educators of middle and high school students, we deeply, deeply care about the well-being of our students here at Sora and about setting them up for success and thriving as they enter into the big bad world. So we know one of the most significant factors in this relationship of them and the world is the relationship they build with their parents, who walk alongside them every step of the way. And so to help you as parents do your job better, Sora Talks is our online conference series for parents and educators to gain insights and actionable ideas and to connect with a global community of engaged parents and experts. So here's a couple of reminders for guidelines in participating for tonight. We want to respect everyone. Everyone might have different families, experiences, and we want to respect where they're coming from. Post-meeting confidentiality. If discussing the meeting with others after, don't mention any names. And if you would like to send questions anonymously, please DM me, and I won't say your name, but I will relay your question in the question and answer session. Well, let's get into it. I'm so happy to be joined by Kat Evans. Kat is a seasoned ADHD coach and educator with nearly 2 decades of experience in adolescent development. Prior to launching her coaching practice, Kat Evans Coaching, she enjoyed teaching and advising for here at Sora School. She was one of our humanities experts and she won the Mission Award for her curriculum on executive functioning. Before Sora, she excelled in leadership roles in high schools and college settings, including as a department chair leader of professional learning and faculty member. In these positions, she wrote and influenced curriculum in service of students' diverse learning needs. Kat has committed her whole career to advocating for students with neurodiverse minds, often serving as a safe space for students to unmask. And we really saw that here at Sora. She has championed equitable grading practices for a decade, working to create more inclusive classrooms. Kat's expertise is enhanced by rigorous training from the ADHD Coaches Academy, accredited by ICF, which is the International Coaching Federation, which upholds the highest standards in coaching. And her educational background includes a master's degree in English and education with additional training in positive psychology, listening skills, and neuroscience of ADHD and executive functioning coaching. And as someone who was diagnosed with ADHD and later in life, Kat actually brings a deep personal understanding to her work. She leverages her professional knowledge with her own experiences to offer relatable and effective coaching to teens and their families. Kat lives in Asheville, North Carolina, with her husband and son, where she is an advocate and a resource for families navigating ADHD and executive functioning challenges. And today it's our pleasure to host Kat as she will be talking about how to build a confident and self driven student. She'll speak on practical insights on building executive functioning skills, focus, planning, and self control to support your child's success here at Sora and beyond. Welcome, Kat.
Thank you, Rachel. Yes, every time I come back here, it's like coming home. I really enjoy my time at Sora. Yeah, and I'm happy to be here. You covered all my expertise. And I also want to emphasize like this presentation is neuro inclusive, which means that these strategies work if you have ADHD, autism spectrum, dyslexia, all those types of things, and if you're just plain old neurotypical. So that's what I mean by neuro inclusive. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay. Let's see here if this works. Okay, so I first you might have read obviously in the talk description that it's confident and self-driven, and then we're talking about executive function, and it's like what is the connection between being confident and self-driven and executive functions. We're first going to talk about what do we mean by executive functions. I think that a lot of people are starting to get familiar with this term, but you might not know exactly what that is. So I want you, if you can, throw in the chat, what have you heard about executive functions? Do you know what they are? Like anything that you can, add to our collective wisdom here about executive functions, just so I can check what our understanding is. Or you can unmute yourself and just share what you think executive functions are. And it's okay if you're like, I have no idea. I mean, that's why you're here too.
Check in the chat.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, Amanda
Yeah,
says,
Amanda,
oh, go for it. Yeah.
first time hearing this term. All right. All right. Welcome. Welcome. EF includes organization and time management, among other things. Yes, big one, big one. Um, People often like think like focus, organization, organizing papers, having a notebook, keeping a plan, a calendar, like that kind of thing. All those things for sure, executive functions. Ah, Nicole, you got it. It's like the king of all executive functions is emotional regulation. And that's what I always start with when I work with people. But yeah, but it includes a lot of different things. So I'm going to illustrate the importance of executive functions here. Um, and I want to tell you that obviously the connection between executive functions and confidence and being able to self-motivate, these connections are very strong, and I hope you'll see by the end of our time that how they're connected, right? So, to illustrate executive functioning, now I don't know how old y'all's kids are or whatever. I have a 4-year-old. He goes to preschool in the morning. I want you to think about you've probably at some point, if you got a kid, you had to go through that morning routine, getting them ready. You have to ship them off to the bus, or maybe they're logging into a virtual school like Sora at a certain time, right? And there's lots of things that have to happen in the morning to get them out the door or get them logged in or whatever you want to call it to start the day. Okay, so if you think about all those things that you as a parent, your brain, and hopefully your teenager's brain too, or if you have a smaller kid, you're kind of they're barring your executive functioning, right? All the things we have to do in order to get to the goal of getting our kids out the door, let's say by 7:30. Hopefully it's not that too early. My kid has to get out the door at 9, which is like pretty nice. Um, but let's think about it. You're packing lunch, or hopefully your teenager's packing their own lunch. They have to get certain ingredients together. They have to plan. They have to prioritize based on their preferences, right? Same thing with like making breakfast. Um, you have to remember what day it is and what's on the schedule that day. Do they have soccer practice? Do they have ballet class later? Do they need their like soccer cleats in their bag, right? So all of that memory and focus are highly connected, right? So you have to rely on both of those things to make sure that they get out the door with all of their stuff. You also are initiating tasks constantly and you are constantly switching from one task to the other. Like now I'm making breakfast, okay, now I'm packing lunch, and now I'm like getting my 4-year-old's like shoes on his feet. Bam, 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 bam. This is actually one of the most highly taxing things our brains do, which is switching from one focus to another focus, and constantly initiating new tasks. So that's an important executive function. Meanwhile, you have to know how much time has passed, and you have to have a sense of, hopefully, an internal sense of time. If you don't have a great internal sense of time, you need to remember to check the time. So that's your memory again. All the while, you are managing your frustrations. You're managing your emotions about starting your day. Maybe you spilled your coffee on your sleeve. You like your kid's like whining about putting his shoes on, all the while you're trying to present as like a regulated person to your child. So that is taking all of your executive functioning energy. So for anyone here, especially if you have ADHD like me, if you've been able to get a kid out the door on time, I applaud you because your brain is working a lot. And all these things are executive functioning. Okay. So I want you to imagine now that two of your executive functions were impaired or they didn't exist. Maybe all of a sudden you don't have any clocks in your house. You don't have a smartphone, you have no way to check the time. And you forgot how to start breakfast. You can't even start you just can't. You can't start it, right? Imagine now your goal, 7:30 kids out the door, seems almost impossible, right? So when we have those executive functions impaired, and like I said, if you have a kid who's on the neurodivergent spectrum, whatever you got, you know, like I am, like some of our executive functions can be developing later than other people. So that's also if you happen to have a kid who has some, later developing executive functions, imagine what it's like for them to have some of those important ones be super underdeveloped or just like not exist. And then imagine trying to like do school related tasks, right? Yeah, spicy situation. On the flip side, imagine if you imagine like your ideal morning routine where like your kid's out, you got your coffee, you have time to like relax before you go to the office, you're starting off your day this way, you feel more in control, probably more confident, you have less stress. And the most important thing is you have more confidence that you'll be able to do it again. And when our executive functions are underdeveloped, that really eats into our self confidence because even though we might be intellectually capable of doing this and this in school or whatever, intellectual capability is different than executive functioning and capability. So we're not talking about how smart you are. Nope, nothing to do with that. Um, yeah, so you can imagine how frustrating it is if you are smart and your executive functions are not cooperating. I see that a lot with people I work with too. Okay. So as you say, executive functioning is everything. And I'm going to send home with you, in an email, I'm going to send you a little self-assessment you can use on yourself, with your teenager, with your kid, to give you a sense of your strengths and your challenges in executive functioning, because we all have both, right? Okay. What I want you to think of is executive functions are everything our brain has to do to engage in and succeed in reaching a goal. Even if the goal is like making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, same executive functions as finishing your PhD dissertation, right? So yeah, like life relies on executive functioning. All right. So we're here to talk about how to help your kids or kid become, like confident and self-driven, self-motivated, which by the way, I just want to say a moment on motivation is a lot of us assume, those of us with fully developed brains, those of us past the age of 25, 28, um, when the brain's actually fully developed, we might take motivation for granted and assume that everyone has the same feelings of motivation and the same access to those feelings. I'm here to tell you that is not true. And motivation can feel very differently for other people. And for me, like with ADHD, my motivation comes and goes. So I can't rely on the feeling of motivation to get things done. So self-driven, I'll explain to you more of like what I really mean by self-driven. Key number one, time. Time, 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 time. I will tell you that I work with college students a lot, right? They come to me, they're in their first year, zero time management, like we're never really taught how to do that. And what ends up happening is they're very earnest and they're very smart. And because college requires so much self-monitoring, monitoring of time, using your time wisely, they have such a difficult time and end up procrastinating as a way to cope. And um, I want you to imagine like what you think, for example, procrastination, which is related to your fluency with time, your awareness of time. What do you think is the number one cause? And obviously, we know it's not laziness. I'm going to burst your bubble if you thought it was. And it's not that we don't want to do the tasks. I mean, sometimes we don't want to. I mean, I don't want to do my taxes. So, I got to do my taxes though. But what do you think is really the root origin? Yeah, overwhelm. Michael, yeah. Yeah, it is not all these things. Obviously, it is. Okay. The desire to avoid uncomfortable emotions. That might be, I don't want to feel overwhelmed. And if I do this thing and I start this thing and I figure out I can't do it right, can't handle that emotionally. I would rather just like get a zero on the task or just like bury it somewhere in the back of my mind than face the discomfort and fear, like Amanda, you said, like fear, disappointment. Um, and that is why we procrastinate. So when you think, if you see your kid procrastinating, you think, ooh, what are they feeling? It's really a sign that they're feeling something they're uncomfortable with. They don't know how to handle it. They don't know how to cope. So they procrastinate. And we do this too. I mean, everyone procrastinates to some extent, right? We're all human beings. Yeah. So that's procrastination. Okay. So you can see then how important emotional regulation is to like reaching your goals, doing things on time, all that kind of stuff, right? So I'm going to give you one tool. Well, it's really like a way to illustrate to kids of all different ages the importance of emotional regulation. So, we call this the hand model of the brain, and it's very simple. Your hand, the base of your hand is what we call the lizard, right? So this includes the cerebellum, part of the brainstem, right? Part of the important part of the nervous system, but is responsible for things like automatic reactions like breathing. It's like the primal, the primitive, if you will, functions, right? That don't require like logic or, choice to do. Our body just like does them. Okay. This is also where like when you think about the freeze, what is it called? Freeze, flight, I forget the other ones, fawn, like all those types of responses also are those kind of primitive responses that we learned probably when we were, out in the savannah somewhere, running from predators, those kinds of things. We want to think about the lizard brain and the dog brain. The dog brain is just the limbic system. It's based on a bunch of parts of the brain. Probably the most important, if you have a young person, teenage, is the amygdala. You might have heard of this little part of the brain before. It's the seat of emotion, but not just all emotions, the scary emotions, the uncomfortable emotions. And it's there to protect you. So in the savannah, we were evolving, lion comes. Oh my God, I have to run away. I am so scared, right? The amygdala is responsible for like kicking in cortisol and adrenaline into your brain and being like, alert, alert, we are threatened. Now we don't have lions and tigers, but we have grades or social media or bullying or take your pick, right? But the brain still operates like it's the body's literally being threatened. For teenagers, their prefrontal cortex is undercooked. But the tricky thing is the brain develops from back to front, whereas the amygdala, it's more in the back. So their amygdala is like on fire. And the amygdala is like, holy crap, like threatened, I have this assignment, I'm overwhelmed by it. Oh my God. The prefrontal cortex, which we call the owl, wise mind, isn't fully out of the nest, if you will, like still kind of like an egg, like um so not fully online. But what happens, what I see a lot happens with a lot of kids is if you know the term like flipping your lid, like flipping your lid like you flip out, that's what happens to the brain where the amygdala, the limbic system's like going a lot of anxiety, fear, freeze. And the owl is not online. It's not covering, if you will, the limbic system. And the owl has all those things you see on those fingers, right? For teens, of course, they don't know this is happening. It's just like a feature of their brain. They're going to grow out of it. Hopefully, like a lot of them, most of us grow out of it, or we learn skills, right? And what I want for you, for your kid, is for them to learn this sooner so they don't have to suffer as much and they can be more confident and happier and that they can be able to reach their goals because that's how you build confidence, right? Okay, so we have that um, lizard, dog is because dogs are expressive and emotional, and you think of a dog can be, happy. So if you think about dog as the emotion, the owl, which has all that self-regulation, everything is kind of like covering the dog, if you will. And how do we do that? When our amygdala is like pumping adrenaline and cortisol throughout our brain, and we're freezing or we're procrastinating or whatever it is that's hindering us from reaching our goal, how do we get the owl back online? Right? And this is where you can teach this. So this is not enough to like tell you all about like to teach emotional regulation to your kid in like this amount of time, but I'm going to give you one tool to start. And you may be familiar with this tool. It's everywhere because it works, and it's called the mood meter. You can Google this. They have mood meters for preschoolers, they have mood meters for adults, all the same premise. But how I use it is I say, look, if I have a kid who's, you know, let's say like procrastinating or doing something that's actually hindering them from becoming more confident in a subject, how you feeling? I don't know. They might just, I feel bad. I don't know what I feel. I feel bad. I don't want to do this math homework. I'm like, all right. We start with, there's four quadrants, as you can see here. The vertical is based on energy, and the horizontal is based on pleasantness of emotion. Even if your kid can't really tell, I'm depressed, I'm despondent, I'm bored, I'm whatever. And by the way, teenagers use the word bored to cover a lot of emotions. They'll just say they're bored. I always like, really? Like, "Oh, this is so boring." I'm like, I think you're kind of afraid of doing it. I think that's what it is. Like, so this is a great way for them to become more nuanced in their emotional vocabulary. And the first step to emotional regulation is name it to tame it. Give it a name, externalize it, right? Then, yes, you can talk to your parents, you can talk to yourself about it, talk to a friend. So, name it to tame it would be number one, step number one to help your kid get a handle on um, emotional regulation, because that is the seat or origin, or let's say uh, I'm going to say the king of all the executive functions. If your emotions are hijacking you, your other executive functions are not going to cooperate. Ah, they just won't, right? I mean, it makes sense. When you're stressed, you can't perform well, right? So I want to take a step there. I like talked for a while. I want to take a step and just, I think I saw a question in the chat, and I just want to allow just like a couple of minutes. If you have reactions, questions, you can do them anonymously in the chat. Um, oh, let's see. Oh, yes, I got a good question about not only dealing with executive functioning and emotional regulation with a neurodivergent child, but also thinking about the hormones associated with puberty. Oh, yeah, this is a double whammy. So, this is I mean, yeah, we should be talking about this if you've got teens. I will say this. I am more versed on teenage girls in this area. I do see a ton of teenage boys though, so I can speak. I'm just going to give that disclaimer. Um, so with and again, this will be super short, but if you think about puberty, those hormones, everything, especially with emotions, are intensified. They're more likely to hijack your kid's owl brain, right? They're also experiencing all different kinds of drives, like that or like, things that their motivations are changing. They could be going toward romantic sexual relationships. They could be going toward their peers more, like they're separating from their parents. Like all this is a normal, natural progression of development. Um, but I would say too that that's why we have to be extra aware that what we find easy with emotional regulation is going to be very hard for them. So I think that's like, without going into like the science of hormones and things, like I would say that is what I always try to express to parents who come coach with me, um, to kind of like assume nothing, like, and practice if you can getting out of your adult mind into what actually Zen practitioners call the beginner's mind, where you try to have an empty mind and you assume nothing. Or another way I think of it is like I was a journalist before I was a teacher. And in journalism, we have this concept called portable ignorance, where you go into a situation assuming nothing. And like you're ignorant, right? You might actually know things about the situation. But if you come at it with a curious mindset, assuming nothing about what's hard, what's easy, what's going on with your kid, their inner world, you will be very surprised at how they'll talk to you and what you'll learn. So, but I think it's a really good question, and I don't feel like I can do it justice right now, but I can definitely point people to like some really cool resources. Also, I think some of the books that I recommended that you could see on the website go into this. There's one particularly called, I think it's just called The Teenage Brain, and it's written by the mother of teenagers, and it is excellent in explaining all of that. So that was a good one. Yeah. Um, all right, we're zipping along. Oh, yes. Um, yeah. Diet support, gut health. How does it play a role in tipping the scales one way or the other? So yeah, we know now, again, I'm not a medical professional, but we know now the connections between the gut and the brain, the gut and mood. We know that, right? Um, my thing with this, and I'm not a nutritionist, but what I see with a lot of kids is not eating consistently. and not eating enough things that give them glucose, which is like the energy. You're literally, that's like brain food. Protein can sustain us, gives us our like build our muscles, but glucose is what actually directly fuels our brain. So, yes, that is carbs. They don't have to be crappy carbs. They can be complex carbs, right? But I will say it can very much affect, yes, their strength or impairment in their executive functioning. And mostly what I concentrate on is just a lot of them is like getting enough calories in you. You may not have that problem with your teenage boy or whatever, but I just happen to work with a population that forgets to eat a lot of the times. So that getting regular nutrition, whatever it is, and water, 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 water. Yes. Um,
And Kat, I
yes,
will
the teenager.
Ted,
Yeah.
if you don't mind, we actually have a health specialist booked for Sora Talks for you guys to specifically talk later on in the year about food, diet, all of that stuff and how it affects your kids. So hold tight for that one and it's going to be excellent.
Ah, I'm gonna go to that one. Sweet. All right, so we're rolling along about time. And I'm doing these in the order of importance, I think. So, if you do nothing else, it's like emotional regulation. Let's figure out how to give them a tool. Building awareness of time. All right. So, this involves all different parts of the brain. Remember our prefrontal cortex, if we're a teenager, not fully cooked, means attention's not fully cooked. Attentional control, not fully cooked. There's different parts of the brain that help us sense time. It's actually quite complex, but how sensing time, which is part of time management, thing I see most affected is attentional regulation, or like the ability to regulate your attention. And that is also the ability to regulate your attention is also connected to short-term memory use and memory in general. So I would say, um, that's how they're connected. So time. Okay, so time is weird. Time dilates, time contracts, time, expands depending on, I mean, it's not just like theory of relativity here. This is also like you've how you feel about a situation or the environment will expand or contract your sense of time. Yeah. You've probably experienced this when like you're on a lecture and it's like, "Ugh, this is so boring." And it feels like it's been 8 million hours and it's only been 20 minutes. Right. So we have the actual clock time and then we have the feeling time. You know what I mean? Like you're a subjective experience of time. One of the major thing, I mean, you're probably going to guess this. The major thing that affects perception of time is emotion and specifically interest. So, and I'm thinking about our ADHDers around here, which like interest is one of the only things that will get our brains to activate. So, perception of time is subjective and influenced by emotion. All right. So, because of that, because of its clear connections to emotion, I don't like to talk about time management because also I think people have, I don't know, it's lame. It sounds lame um, to a teenager. I say relationship to time. What's your relationship to time? A favorite question I ask, and I please ask your kids this question, is like, if time were a character, what would the character be like? What would your relationship with the character be like? I ask every kid I work with this question, and it is pretty amazing what they come up with. One of them said recently, time's like a ninja that I never know is gonna like sneak out, behind like a corner and like hit me in the face. I was like, yeah, me too. So that told me a lot about how they feel about time. Okay, so it's basically with time, getting them started, and then I'll give you a tool, but getting them started with relation awareness of time and their relationship with time is just being in this curious mindset, like asking that question, if time were a character or if time were a person, would you want to hang out with them? Like, would they be like your boss or would they be like your annoying sibling or would they be like your friend? No one says friend, by the way. No one says friend. Um, That'll tell you a lot. Also, does your kid know, or do you know for your kid, one, how they experience time, but also for them, what makes it seem to expand or contract? So when they get this, um, for example, let's say, ah, they've been assigned an essay. Um, Essays are really hard for those of us who have some impairments in attention, sustaining effort. Um, so let's say I got an essay and I'm already not feeling good about this. I don't have a lot of confidence. I've had bad experiences in the past with essays. I don't believe I can do it. Writing a paragraph of that essay is going to feel like I'm going in slow motion. This is also why if you've ever told your kid, okay, just do it. It's going to take 15 minutes. Just like do it. Why aren't you doing it? It's going to take 5 minutes. They don't believe you. Like, because to them, it does not feel 5 minutes. It does not feel 15 minutes. And that's their truth. Yeah, that is their truth. It's just their subjective experience. So what makes it feel long? What makes it feel faster? Maybe if there's some things that make it feel faster, how can you incorporate some of those things when you tackle your essay, right? Like, think about that. The other thing I want to mention is what's called time orientation. So, Richard Zimbardo, who was a very famous psychologist, researcher, came up with experiments you've probably heard of, wrote, well, researched a lot about people's perception of time and wrote this book called The Time Paradox. And it's one of my recommended books. It's a little academic-y ish. So it's not like, oh, this is a beach, it's not a beach read. All right. But if you go online and look it up, at least you can get some summaries probably of it. So he talks about there's different time orientations. Teenagers are oriented toward the present. You can imagine how this will play out when we talk about time management. So they're not future oriented generally. Adults are more future oriented generally. If your kid has a non-typical, non-average brain like mine, like ADHD, yeah, we don't really grow out of the present orientation. So for a typical developing teenager, that's kind of where they are. And that's why, I remember as a teacher when I was younger, before I understood things like this, I would say things like, well, why isn't the goal of college enough to motivate my freshman student? It is too far away. It doesn't exist. Junior year, they start to feel a little bit of the heat, but like it doesn't exist. If you have ADHD, it really is not on your radar. Not that you don't want it to be. It just literally is not in your brain. Okay, so past, present, future. There's a really cool time inventory, kind of like quiz that you can take. Just Google it. Zimbardo time inventory. You can take it, your kids can take it, and you can see your different time orientations. And certain time orientations are associated with anxiety, depression, right? We have future orientation, probably more anxious person. Past orientation can have a tendency toward depression. What the great thing about knowing this is that you can also change your time orientation. So that can also lead to a lot of happiness. By the way, Kathy, I just saw your message. She popped and said accuracy. That's funny. Sweet. Okay. Cool, cool, cool. Glad. I'm glad. Okay, so time, let's get them talking about time and thinking about time. My number one tool for time management, start this as early as possible, is just get them a bunch of analog clocks. $5 analog clocks. Put them literally everywhere, in the bathroom, above the tub, in front of their bed, like just everywhere. Make them silent though. Let's say, I'm not a fan of the ticking, but um the analog clock is special because we can physically see the movement of time. Your Apple Watch not going to do that for you. Well, I guess no, you can put analog. Never mind, you could for Apple Watch. Um, Most kids are not used to seeing clocks like that on their phone unless they specifically turn it to an analog like face. They're not going to know that. So just get a bunch of them, throw them around the house, in like eyesight. Just that. Try it. See what happens. You can also, timers like sand, like timers, anything to make time physical is going to be good. Um, and with time, just remember that what to us seems very obvious, which is like, why aren't you thinking about your future? Because it's like, hello. Think of it as like the future does not exist. So one thing I say is like, how can we bring the future closer and how do we make it more concrete? So sometimes that is like thinking about not like 3 years from now, I want to get into Harvard or something. I don't know. It'll be like in the next 48 hours, like, here's what I would like to do, right? And I'm going to have a reward, right? And if we're going to talk about rewards, we want to talk about rewards that are fairly immediate because remember present orientation. Yeah. All right. Things happening in the chat. Um, oh, the time timer. Yeah, I like that. I will, grandfather clock. I will also just say a minute about a thing about timers that it can stress some kids out. I don't know, like the thing going down, it makes them, I don't know, but like there's lots of ways also to have like one thing I suggest too is you want to teach your kids about time. Um, use their songs. So song 3 minutes. What's a playlist? 20 minutes, right? A song, especially if they like it, they can practice like, oh, that was a five. This is like for 5 minutes, I'm listening to two songs. And you can use that language. Like, how long is this going to take? It's going to take five songs worth, a time. Or use another unit of measure that's familiar and not associated with the clock. You could do that too. All right. I'm gonna be as concise as I can about these two, and because I also want to leave room for questions and more discussion. So motivation, I said I was going to come to this. So motivation is all about dopamine. Dopamine's we usually think about it as like the feel-good chemical, but it's really just the motivation molecule. It's motivation. It's what helps us um feel rewards and it helps us persist in order to get rewards. P.S. If you have ADHD, your reward system's a little funky compared to neurotypicals. And there's, yeah, different ways we deal with that. But this little acronym I'm going to give you works for any teenager, neuro inclusive, right? INCUP, and I'm going to send this to you in a email. So when we think about motivation, if you ever had a kid, you're like, oh, my kid's not self-driven. That's crazy. Um, whenever and my kid's not motivated like he can't even come up with his own goals, right? I'm like, all right, one, dopamine deficiency probably. um okay, but let's like also think about how much time they're spending outside. That can help with dopamine. But here's a quick way to remember some things that might be motivating elements for your kid. Interest seems pretty obvious, right? Like, oh, if they're interested. But there's two different types of interest. There's positive interest, which is like, oh, I'm genuinely curious about this thing. This feels good. Positive interest. There's also negative interest, which is what a lot of kids in traditional school systems rely on to get things done. And that is the fear of consequence. That's the only way they're getting something done. That is very sad. And that's why I like Sora, by the way. Um, yeah, they're afraid of the zero. They don't want mom and dad on their back. That's what's actually getting their brain to activate. So, that's fine. I mean, we all are motivated by like some negative interest, like me paying my taxes is not positive interest. I want to avoid the IRS tracking me down, right? So that's my negative interest is helping my brain. We want hopefully a balance of some negative and positive interest. And interest can take many forms. Like novelty. Every brain loves novelty. Neurodiverse brains really love novelty. And I'm going to give you an example. So, um, had a kid who was dyslexic, has dyslexia and ADHD, and we were working on reading, and he just could not start his reading homework. He just, I cannot get this going. Like, this is going to be so terrible for me. I can't do it. And I was like, all right, dude, like, what is the weirdest way you can do your homework? Weird, right? What's the weirdest way you can start doing your homework? Tried other things. He ended up doing his homework upside down. Maybe not the whole time, but it got him starting to read. I was like, all right, bro. Yeah, you do you. Like in my office. Like some people do it on a treadmill or on a bouncy ball. But I always say, like, what's the weirdest thing you can come up with? Right? That's that novelty sparkle. Um, and see how weird your kids can get. I don't know. So that's like an example of novelty. These other ones, challenge competition. Some people are really motivated by that. Creativity. I will say, check if your kid's bored at school. They might be really bored. And that's gonna talk about lack of anything motivating, drive. It'll kill it. So, if anything, like ask them about their boredom level. Being chronically bored means you're chronically stressed. So, that's a little aside on that. Last couple things, like I'll talk about passion, purpose, and play. Those kind of maybe seem obvious, like you're passionate for something. I hear a lot from teenagers that they're like, this homework has no purpose. This is not going to help me live my dull life. This is busy work. I hear this like every day. And sometimes it is. Like I see it, right? Like let's just admit. Um, Not if you go to Sora. I swear to God, I'm not an employee of Sora anymore, but I just have to say, like, like it's true, like Sora just cuts through that. But I mean, like any school could do that, right? Like, but well, with some limitation. But yeah, making it playful, not taking it so seriously, making it playful. And then urgency, we've probably all seen this where our kids like go into like hyper focus mode and it's like midnight and the essays due at like 9 a.m. and they bang out a whole essay and you're like, how did you just do that? Cortisol and norepinephrine activated from the amygdala, helping their brain focus. That is fine. It's just that if you do it again and again, you're probably going to burn your brain out. So, my little, like, I say this to parents and they kind of cringe, but I'm just going to say it is don't worry a ton. If you see your kid moderately occasionally waiting till the last minute to do things, because that's actually a way they might not know it, but that is a way that they're coping with the lack of interest and they're actually activating their brain with their urgency. It's just that we don't want them doing that every single time because that's super stressful. Okay. So in cup, yeah. Oh, yes, Nicole. Sorry, okay, these are good comments. Thank you, everyone. I was like catching up on that. Okay, so in cup, we're talking about motivating. I'm going to give you that tool in the email. Two. Last one, I'm going to talk about technology for a hot minute. We all have strong opinions. We all, I don't know how old y'all are. I'm a millennial. I did not get a when did I get a cell phone? Senior year of freshman college year. Anyway, I did not grow up with my social life on a screen. A lot of us in this Zoom probably did not. We can't understand what it's like. So, one, there is somewhat a limitation to our understanding of how important social media is to them. Like, it's just a generational difference. I'm never going to really get it. And I work with teenagers every single day. However, that doesn't mean that we can ignore all the science and evidence that your screen time will damage your brain. Like excessive screen time will actually delay your development of executive functioning. Not just delay, probably damage the development of your executive functioning. And it really sucks that it's also a source of joy and connection for a lot of our teens, right? It just sucks. It's just super hard right now. Um, they are susceptible to overuse of technology or addiction to technology because prefrontal cortex, owl brain, not fully cooked, impulse control, not fully cooked, lack of future thinking. This is all like not their fault. It's just their brains at this moment in time. Okay. So, with that being said, oh, I want to tell you something else that will explain a lot of why your kid probably kicks and punches or wants to kick and punch when you take their phone away from you. Them is they did fMRI studies of teenagers' brains and looked at the prefrontal cortex. And when the teens were faced with a decision that required cost benefit analysis to make the good decision, literally their prefrontal cortex didn't light up very much compared to an adult. Literally, there's less activity. So it is where they are at right now. On the other hand, they have a limbic system that is super sensitive to high surges of dopamine. They will grow out of this like vulnerable position. Um, Unfortunately, just when their brain is most vulnerable is the most time they want to use screens. It's really hard being a parent nowadays. You probably know, I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this, but you probably know like how it works. Like, you use the phone, your brain gets a reward of the dopamine. If you have ADHD, your brain is starved for dopamine. The brain wants more. Um, it gets reinforced that use of phone equals dopamine. It creates internal motivation to get more dopamine. And then it just, there it goes, right? So what do? We can interrupt the cycle. Yeah. Like, um, which would mean limited use of the phone, etc. I mean, I think you can probably think of all the ways that you could do that. But here's the thing, like they're gonna go kicking and screaming. They I want to tell you, share with you a little anecdote I had with a client recently. I'll protect their anonymity, but we were talking about screen use and very smart teenager, she's like, I don't care. I don't care if it's damaging my brain. And she's not like, if that sound like, um, I don't, I believe she understands what it is doing to her brain, but the pull is so strong and the future brain that she might be thinking of is so far away. She's like, that means nothing to me. The logic my parents try to get me with, the data, the movies, the social dilemma movie, if you've ever seen that, like there's no, it's not working. Okay, so here's what I recommend is that you do have a tech plan of some kind, and I'm gonna have some specific ideas and take what you like and leave the rest. Right, obviously, these are just ideas. So one way is to think about the premise that your kid knows how bad it is. I don't, I mean, there might be some kids who are clueless, but it's out there enough that I would be shocked if a teenager was like, "No, I really don't know how this is negatively affecting me." They know. Okay, so go with that premise. Don't try to convince them that it's bad, right? Or like tell them how bad it is. We know. Give them a sense of autonomy and agency by instead of giving them like, okay, here's what's going to happen. You're going to have, your Instagram limited to 10 minutes and you're going to have your TikTok limited to blah, blah, blah. Ask them for their ideas. You don't have to automatically go with them, but the even the act of inviting them into creation of a plan for tech is going to give you a lot of cred. Okay. The other thing that's going to give you a lot of cred is if the plan applies to you too, or the whole family. Yeah. Maybe not forever, like obviously, but if your kid sees you putting your cell phone in the basket, every night at 7, and the sibling does that, and mom and dad do it, and grandpa does it, or whatever, it doesn't feel like a punishment, less like a punishment that it's just focused on them not doing it. It's like, oh no, our whole family cares about each other's brains. And yeah, we're in it together. So if you can try it, um, and I am happy to, if you want to email me, I have tons of examples of family tech plans, that you could use as examples. I'm sure you could Google this and find lots of examples. Um, but it will go a long way. And if we're talking about how to build a more confident, self-driven student, tech overuse and addiction is going to take away their drive for anything other than tech use. So that is a key component. And if you're like concerned about the amount of time they're spending or whatever, it's real. Like, yeah, most parents are concerned. Um, but instead of like we can panic about it, because it's so different than what we had, but and nag them and everything, and they will just dig in more. So, um, if you can try to go with non-judgment, like non-nagging, non-pressure, um, and invite them to create a plan where the whole family is involved, that's going to be probably your best bet to help them continue to develop their executive functioning without tech sort of damaging it. You feel so seen. I don't know what part of that, Janine, that was, but I'm glad you feel seen. Um, Set screen times on phones. I'm going to tell you something, Rachel. Um, Kids will get around it. Like I had a parent meeting with these two parents, and they're like, "Yeah, we have strict screen limits." I'm like, "I have to tell you something. Your teenager just told me yesterday that they just go around it.
You can
They just
have
go,
phones. You can have phones that
yeah,
I'm not a Bark employee,
yeah.
but
You're not a bot. Yeah,
Bark is they don't get around it at all. So it's
yes.
just
Bark is legit.
yeah.
Um,
So I don't use yeah, that's what I use with mine. But
Good.
on another note, we do have a tech friendly at home talk
Oh
happening
yeah.
next month as well. So all of these things are gonna
Yeah.
lovely coincide.
Ooh, I love that. I love all these connections. So Bark Brick is another one. I just ordered one. I can ask me how it's going like a week from now. I ordered it for myself because I got ADHD and yeah, can't mess with phone. Um, so I'm also going to send you I just call them like family dinner conversation starters about technology that are sort of like open, curious, not judgmental to start a conversation and then see what happens. What your kid says might surprise you, you know? Okay, we have a couple of minutes. I'm happy to stay on later. You guys got questions, you guys got things you want to comment. I want to hear from you as well. But you will also just know you will receive an email from me from these tools that I talked about. I will give you the slides as well. And then please reach out if, a lot of my work is the things that I've been describing. So working with teenagers on helping them get what they want is how I phrase it. So, um, helping them understand their strengths and how to use their strengths to get what they want. Usually, what they want is less stress. Usually, what they want is like maybe higher grades or whatever it is. But when I work with a teen, they they set the agenda. It's very empowering for them. I'm not going to be adult that's like, here's what you should do, blah, 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 blah. So I work with them to help empower them to do things on their own. So it's like I help them help themselves because that's the only way they're going to feel agency. So that's kind of my approach. And then I also just do very practical things. I'm like, oh, yeah, you can't start your essay. What are we going to do about that, like right now? right? I also have a really cool parent group. This parent group is specifically for parents of kids with ADHD. But I also say if your kid has any flavor of like neurodivergence, like you would fit in, you can check it on my website. Text me, email me. I'm always up to hear any of your questions. You don't have to work with me to like get, a good answer through email from me. So please do that. You can see my contact info and then yeah, you'll get through the email too. Um, cool. Okay, I'm going to just stop sharing. So yeah, we're right at, well, for me, it's 9:02. I'm happy to stick around, have any kind of conversation, or you might have some, if you have specific questions about your kid, I want to hear them. Just remember that this is recorded and we probably don't want to use names, things like that, but you can ask like general questions. I think if you have the question, it means other parents probably have the question as well.
Kat, we
Um,
have something in the chat from Marcelo. Thank you for this testimony. We did
cool.
Newport's digital detox from his book, Digital Minimalism for a Month. It was amazing. I started it and the kids decided to copy me. Look at that modeling, what we teach. It worked very well. However, when the detox was over and had to build a plan to start reusing tech, they quickly were back to old levels and some more. It felt like a rebound. They are finding, here it is, some middle ground.
Yeah.
They are 14 and 16. Thank you.
So, Marcella, I don't how old were they when they did you did the modeling and they did the detox?
It was about a year ago, so they were,
All right.
either 12 and 14 or 13 and 15, something like that.
The year of brain development makes a difference, right? And I
Oh
always
yeah.
say, I think I posted about this recently on in my Instagram is like if your kid is under 13, like you're they it's not that they don't want to be responsible or regulated. Again, they know how bad it is for their brains, but they just don't have the cognitive development yet to control it. Now, if your kid, because my ADHD is my specialty, right? So if your kid has ADHD, generally, because ADHD is a neurodevelopmental difference, which means it's most obvious when everyone's brains are developing that our brains are a little going on their own pace. So, what we say is that if you have a kid with ADHD and you're talking about like impulse regulation, subtract 3 years from their not from their actual age, and that's probably where they're at. So, yeah, your 15 might be physically 15, but their impulse control might be that of a 10, 11, or 12-year-old. So think 3 years, 30% delay. Um, in not every single executive function, but we say it's generally, think about that. Um, yeah. So, but that's awesome. Yes, I've heard of this. So now yeah, I need to buy this. I need to get this. Um, Amanda is the digital minimum. Okay, cool. Thank you, Amanda. That's awesome. Yeah, and we're having that tech conversation coming up. Okay, sweet. Um, what else is on your minds? Like what you got questions? I'm would love to hear any of your experiences if it's with tech or like helping your kid with procrastination or goals. Yeah.
I have a quick question, general question.
Yeah.
Well, first a disclaimer, I work as a parenting coach, so
Ah,
I've
cool.
and I want to know your take on the name it to tame it tool,
Yeah.
because usually when kids are like throwing tantrums or very emotional, it, what I tell parents is, don't try to make they
No.
name it feelings at that moment. So how
Oh
do you
my
deal with that?
Yeah, no, that's yeah, we gotta, there's other tools for that. I'm thinking more about you notice there's a shift in their emotion. They're not in like that fight, flight, freeze moment, right? Okay, so meltdowns happen. Like, again, yeah, if you have sensory sensitivities, if you're on the autism spectrum, if you're on the ADHD spectrum, like, this is gonna happen. Um, the number one thing I think when your kid is like in that meltdown is changing uh the sensory information they're receiving. So, for example, I coached two parents who had an 11-year-old with ADHD, and he would get so frustrated in the morning and he would literally melt to the ground like he was like a puddle like on the ground. That was his like body's response to the stress. And I was like, okay, got some puddle time. All right, like we're gonna turn the lights off. Or sometimes they would flick the lights on and off, but that's a little, we're gonna turn the lights off. He had a weighted blanket. We're gonna put the weighted blanket on him. Maybe we work, it could be anything. It's like we're gonna light a candle. We're gonna anything to change the sensory input or take him outside. I was like, pick your puddle up, take him outside, stand outside on your porch. Like, don't put a jacket on, just like feel the cold air, right? Um, get him in the shower. I mean, it's sometimes that's impossible. But yeah, that would be my first thing. Lights do a lot. And then pressure on the body can be really super regulating. With myself, I have a 4-year-old, so everything is intense. And the first thing I do is hold him when he's in his, and then he'll be like, stop, do not touch me. I was like, okay. But that's my my first go around. But sometimes touching is not the thing. But yeah, and then I would always ask, I'm like, okay, like I don't know your kid particularly with the sensory stuff. Sometimes I say, I have something called like a sensory needs menu that it's kind of a little bit geared toward teenagers, but like, do you like soft or hard seats? Do you like do you like a blanket or do you not, right? So when they go to focus or do something hard, I'm like, look at your sensory menu. Environment makes a big difference. And this is true of neurotypical kids too. So like the sensory thing is what I would first go to. Not name entertainment. Yeah, I 100% agree. Yeah.
Nice. Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, Selena,
So
yes. Gifted. She has a lot of big well, yeah, a lot of gifted kids do have big emotion struggles with anxiety and depression. Yeah, I see a lot of that. Her teacher mentioned executive functioning disorder. Okay, super informative. How do I go about starting her and getting help she needs? Because we have tried so many different things. Nothing seems to work. Yeah, you're not alone. Um, to my knowledge, I mean, I think I know what the teacher was trying to say. I mean, we don't I mean, honestly, ADHD can be called executive functioning disorder. Um, so I would say number one is I wonder how does she know? Like, does she, but she has an
Oh,
IEP. Okay, she has an IEP. So this was at the
she has
meeting.
an IEP.
Okay.
She knows she is very much into labeling herself right now. Like
Yeah.
she's like, I'm neurodivergent, I'm neuro she loves to label herself. She doesn't like to label the trash in her room, but you know,
I'm here
we
for it. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So
Cool.
she she's cool with labeling, and I mean, she knows has anxiety. We've been in mental health for 2 years with her anxiety and depression.
Hmm.
But we have literally tried, like, we have done the timer method, we have tried incentivizing, we have tried so many different things because sorry, I too have a background in therapy and that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
And I mean, and it just depends on the day,
Yep.
to be honest. And I'm just like, and I've never dealt with anything like this. Like, it's so different. So, and like I don't know how to go about this because I've been out of the
Yeah.
therapy world for a few years.
Yeah. Um, yeah, you're not alone. I mean, I hear this from parents multiple times a week. So like there are moms and dads who are right there with you. I just want to say, like, right? Without
Right,
knowing her history and exactly her executive functioning weakness and strengths, like, I don't know if there's ADHD involved or something else. And to some point, it doesn't really matter what we call it, but it might help her if she knew. I don't know.
right.
Um, but I will say that a lot of us neurodivergent folks, a lot of comorbidity with anxiety, depression, OCD, all the things. Um, so I also help kids who most kids who come to me have been trying stuff. They've really been trying, or their parents have been trying, and like the therapy or the whatever is just not like, and their kid might be willing, but like therapy, and you know this as, you know, someone with a therapy background, gets at the origin of those psychological issues. It can help you heal from things and maybe give you insight, perhaps give you some like psychological tools. And then there's like the practical everyday, like, how do I literally start my home? Like, literally, how do I start my
Yeah.
home?
And I
Right?
feel like that's kind of where we're at
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
like her psychiatrist was like, she doesn't have ADHD. And I was like,
Okay.
we looking at the same child. Like, I'm
Okay.
like, okay. She's like, she doesn't have ADHD. And I'm like, I don't think you're looking at the same kid. And so
Yeah.
I'm like, they're like, and I mean, she's a well-rounded, good kid,
Yeah.
but it's just like, I'm at my wit's end. I'm at my wit's
Yeah.
end.
I hear you. I hear you. Of course you are. Right?
Yeah.
Um, you could also, like, I'm a big fan of like, well, maybe it's ADHD. I was like, you could just, the things that work for ADHD work for a lot of other things too, and like vice
Okay.
versa, right? So, but the only thing I will say, so I would say about 60% of the kids that I coach have anxiety. Um, Sometimes what happens, and I don't know which is true for your daughter, but um, is that when ADHD, whether it is that like one, let's just say when executive dysfunction is unmanaged, it creates anxiety, and the anxiety exacerbates executive dysfunction. So really,
Okay.
it's chicken or egg, or you know, anxiety if it's unmanaged, or right, like if she feels like she doesn't have the tools, but maybe she does, I don't know. Um, yeah, of course she can't activate her brain or focus on, you know, that kind of thing. Um, but I would say that what I see as most impactful for kids that struggle with anxiety is, um, and again, I know you've said you've done everything. I don't want to like assume
Right.
I might be saying something you're like, oh yeah, I've done that.
No,
Is
just
sort of like there's a, and again, I don't know her background, but I see when it comes to executive functions and anxiety that um they need the experience of doing it. So let's say it's tasks, right? Like
mhm.
anxiety, I often see it in the form of perfectionism. Um,
Yes.
and yeah, is that okay? Oh yeah.
Yes.
I know your girl.
And then
I
and
got
then
50
if
girls like this myself. Yeah.
and then if she can't meet satisfaction, then she's automatically a failure.
Black and white thinking. Black and white
Yep.
thinking. Yeah. So the cognitive biases that go along with anxiety are, you know, they're there. Um, Perfectionism, I see it. I mean, I have to say, and this can be true of boys. I don't want to be super gender, but like my girls, every single one of them, right? Perfectionist. Um, so a lot of that is like she can use some of those therapeutic tools, like CBT, you know, works a lot for kids like with that. And just attacking those cognitive biases that go along with anxiety, that fuel anxiety. Um, and then somatic tools like getting her into her body, um, you know, thinking about the idea that like our emotions control so much of what we think, right? So, and like stress in our body controls so much or can contribute so much to what our thoughts are, and then our thoughts exacerbate the
Hmm.
stress and da 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 da, you know the deal. Yeah,
Yep.
so
That sounds like her.
uh-huh, yeah.
Yep.
This was also, I just want to say personally, like I I was undiagnosed for 34 years, and it was the same pattern with me throughout high school.
Okay.
I've been there, right? Um, but yeah, I think we can I want to dig in more with you because I want to hear what you've tried, and sort of like I hear that you're sort of
Okay.
like, oh no, what is the end of this road, right? Um,
Right.
could I ask you to email me and then we can
Sure.
like chat and you can tell me a little bit more? Cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I will say like this is not entirely uncommon. Like I do, like I said, I'm not joking, like every single day. Like
Okay.
I work with kids like her. And I was a
Okay.
kid like her, you know?
Right. Well, and it breaks my heart because
I know.
like she's a good kid. She's a
Yeah.
great big sister and she has so many talents. But
Yeah.
when one little thing causes her to downward spiral and then she thinks she's a failure because of that one little thing.
Yep.
And then she sits in
Suffering.
her room and she self-isolates and I'm just like, how do I pull you out? How do, as your mother, do I help you with this?
Hmm.
Selena, I think
So,
we're going to have some great chats with you, and we're here to support you in the ways
Yeah.
that
all right.
we can with your sweet one, because I feel it. I feel it here as you're sharing.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not
Yes.
alone. Um, we have one more question. I want to honor your time, Kat. So
Yes.
we will wrap with this question. Lucia said, could you apply these same systems and concepts to completing chores, or is it mainly geared towards school tasks?
Big fat yes to chores. Um, Often you can teach your kids these concepts and skills through chores. So like you don't have control over the school day, right? Or if you're sending them off to school somewhere. Um, and like I said, most traditional schools do not explicitly teach these things. They're starting to more, just like they're starting to teach social emotional learning more. So that's good, but it's not enough. So what you can do is exactly apply these things to chores. If your goal is like you're going to sweep the front porch, you're engaging in goal-directed behavior. When you go to sweep the front porch, it's the same executive functions you would use. You can also try out systems through the chores. Um, so one of the things I find also, um, and I want to also acknowledge Stephanie's question. Um, what you can do, right? So you can experiment at home. If you find a system or a routine that works with chores, it's probably going to work with their school tasks too. You can also use chores to see where their executive function strengths and challenges are, right? Because like executive functioning doesn't just appear at like it's not just like only at school, like it's your whole life. Which is why if you improve executive functioning, you can improve your whole life, right? So yeah, go for it with chores. I talk about this all the time, the chores with parents. And yeah, I think it's a great way to experiment with it. Um, cool. Oh, yeah. Yeah, thank you. And Stephanie, I know I hear you about the junior year. This is very normal. There isn't enough time to do everything he loves and still get his homework done. I know. Yes, this is a problem with American high school. Yeah. Um, I have thoughts, Stephanie. Uh, if you could email me, or you can give me your email right now, I could just email you. Um, I'll just put my email in the chat for everyone else too. You can also text me. I'm a texter, not
And
a
I
caller.
some people are saying goodbye, so I just
Okay,
want
thank you.
to thank you for coming. For those of you who are leaving, we will have a recording of tonight, but back to Kat. Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you. I just wanted to make
No,
sure
no.
that everybody was
Yeah, cool. No, I'm just making sure I get Selena's. Okay, cool. I got Selena's email.
okay,
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
Would you did you want to answer any more of the I think we've wrapped the questions in the
No, yeah. No, oh, Stephanie, you'll email me. Okay, great. Let's email me. Just copy that, what you just wrote into the email, and then I know it's you and you can, yeah, I
Great.
got, I got
I
lots of,
I really want to honor Kat's time. She's gone above and beyond in her time. So thank you, Kat,
thank
for
you.
joining us today. And parents, whether you're Sora parents or parents from other schools, thank you for coming tonight. We love your engagement. Your questions made this event truly special, and we appreciate your support and commitment to our community. There is more to come next month. This is a monthly Sora Talk series. Next month is on getting your home tech ready. So great little amuse-bouche tonight on that. Guys, have a really lovely night. We're going to stop the recording now, but